Alright, let's begin. So for this video, we're going to be talking about game objects and how they register and deregister to the scene, as well as all the updatable and drawables. So for the game object itself, it takes inheritance from all of our associated examples. Got update, draw, alarm, input, and collide. All of the examples have their own attorney, which I'll showcase momentarily, and as well as ways to register to the scene and deregister from the scene. So for the game object, on creation, it creates two requests. These two requests allow it to be registered and deregistered from the scene. So for registration, it enters, deregistration, it exits. Whenever a game object wants to enter the scene, it will go through the scene attorney to submit its request to the current active scene. So when this request is submitted, it will be put into a request broker, and at the start of the frame, the request broker will go through all of the associated given requests and process them. So in the sake of game object register, at the top of the frame, it will submit the scene's entry, or if it was deregister, it will submit the scene's exit. So all of our examples, including the game object, take from this registration state strut to have the proper register, pending, deregister, and currently deregistered. It will take all the associated proper states, and whenever someone attempts to enter or exit a scene, it will make sure that they are at the right step in the registration process before going through. This will make sure that a user doesn't accidentally try and submit entry multiple times in the same frame, or likewise submit multiple exits on the same frame as well. Beyond that, so yeah, all the requests take from this execute request, and then at the start of each frame, the request broker goes through all of its requests and processes them. For the game object itself, game objects have the submit and the connect to scene, disconnect from scene. Whenever an object submits, a game object submits its entry, it will go into the connect scene. And whenever an object submits its exit, as we'll see later here, it will disconnect itself from the scene. So let's quickly talk about the updatable and drawables. Actually, real quick, back to the attorney. So the attorney, this is how the registration requests can access the private entry and exits to scene for the classes. They get it through their associated attorney. So for the update, we have the same situation. For the update attorney, we have the scene registration and deregistration being passed through to the registers through the attorney. And we also have some pass-throughs for the update manager. So whenever the manager wants to call the updates for all the updatables, or insert it or get the list reference, it will be able to do so through the attorney. So for the updatable, we have the request to register or deregister from the scene, the actual scene registry and deregistration that is accessed through an attorney, the update, which the user can define, and the setter and getter for its reference in the manager list. So inside the CPP file for this, on create, we create our registration requests. We have our registration guards to make sure that the user does not try to double register or deregister. All the requests, as we saw by the game object, will be passed on through to the scene level. So when it's time to register or deregister, it will be done here, or when they submit the request, it will be done here as well. As for the setters and getters, that is for the manager. So when it is time to register or deregister to the manager, it will insert the object into the front of the update storage list, and then it will pass through this object. It will pass the iterator back to it through this callback. So it will call back here to set the list reference in the updatable. This is so that when it's time to deregister the object, we can take that object and get the list reference from it that we just set, and that allows us to have a constant delete rather than us searching through the entire list and finding the object that way. And then processing of elements, this is done at the scene level, and at the scene level we will go through our entire list and call all of the updates. It is done at the end of the scene update loop. Registry and deregistry, like we showed before, they just call the scene registration deregistration, which is passed through the attorney. For the drawable functions relatively similar to the updatable, except we also have a draw2d function on top of the draw function. So inside the CPP file, actually just to showcase all of it, inside the CPP file now, we create our requests. We have the draw 2D for the user to define, the setter and getter for the manager, and then we have our registration guards for our registry, deregistry, and scene entry and scene exit. And then at the deletion, which is for all of these, for the drawable, updatable, and the game object, we delete the requests once the object is done, once the object is deleted. So for the draw registry and deregistry, both of these look for to the draw attorney to get access to the registry and deregistry functions. And then we have all the pass-throughs for the manager here. For the draw manager itself, it just has a list for the drawables. Whenever something registers or deregisters to the draw manager, it sets the list reference at the start of the drawable list for the object so that it can deregister it in constant time by calling the erased on that iterator. And then when it's time to process the elements, it'll go through all the 3D objects and then all the 2D objects. It's important to do all the 3D objects first to make sure that none of them will attempt to get in the way of the rendering of the sprites, because if we try to draw 3D objects and 2D objects at the same time, some of the 3D objects will be drawn over our sprites, which is not what we are looking for. And this is called during the scenes draw function right here. So for the actual running of this, to just quickly showcase, so whenever it's time for the object to submit entry, I have 5 of them, so it's going to call this constructor 5 times, and then it's going to go into here where we will request all of our registry. It's going to call this 5 times, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we can see it in the game space. So as you can see here, we are registering and deregistering from updates. So as you can see, the bottom frigate looked like it was moving around despite nothing happening. That was because it was still registering its inputs, but because the update was not being the update wasn't updating, it made it so that it looked as if it wasn't moving. But once it got its update back, it was able to update the world space, and then you saw it jump around. And then you also saw it flashing in and out because I had it constantly registering and deregistering its updatables and drawables, just to show that that can be done live. Anyway, once the last alarm was called, we call our scene exit, where it will request all of its deregistry. And then all the frigates are gone. No leaks, and that's it.